Under the snow-laden skies of Boston's frozen harbor, Detective Ethan Cole stands before the rusting hull of a cargo ship drifting in silence. Beside him, Max, a wounded German shepherd, with one paw wrapped in bandage, stares into the blizzard, not with fear, but with purpose. Somewhere inside that ship, two young women, the billionaire's twin daughters, wait in the dark, praying for a miracle that may never come. What began as a desperate search through the storm becomes a battle against betrayal buried deep within the city's own walls. As Ethan follows Max into the heart of the storm, he uncovers a truth so dangerous at the it threatens to shatter not just his faith in justice, but his faith in humanity itself. And in that final moment, when bullets and snow collide, Ethan learns that God's miracles don't always descend from the clouds. Sometimes, they fight beside us on four. Snow fell silently over the city of Boston, turning the river into a pale ribbon beneath the flickering orange lights of the Charles Bridge. The wind carried a chill that bit through wool coats and police uniforms alike. Detective Ethan Cole stood beside an abandoned black SUV, its doors hanging open, the faint smell of gasoline mixing with winter air. His breath rose like smoke as he scanned the scene, deliberate, calculating, and weary. Ethan, 35, had the kind of face that life had carved rather than blessed. Angular jaw, a 2-day stubble, and gray eyes that looked older than he was. He'd been an FBI field agent once, the kind who broke cases built on silence. But 7 years ago, his wife Lena was abducted and murdered in a ransom gone wrong. Since then, he'd left the bureau, traded ambition for solitude, and joined the Boston Police Department's Missing Persons Unit, a place where he could still chase ghosts without anyone asking if he slept at night. Beside him, a German shepherd crouched low, nose hovering just above the icy ground. Max, 7 years old, strong-chested with thick sable fur and a pale scar slicing across his left shoulder, was more than a K9 partner. He was Ethan's shadow. The dog's breath came in white puffs as he sniffed near the tire tracks, tail stiff, ears twitching toward the faint echo of the river. "Two missing girls," the officer at the barricade muttered. "Emma and Grace Whitmore, daughters of Richard Whitmore, the investment guy." Ethan didn't answer. He'd read the report. Twin daughters, 22, last seen leaving a charity concert downtown. Their driver claimed he'd been locked out of the car for 5 minutes. When he returned, they were gone. The phone recovered from the passenger seat still glowed faintly. A half-typed message. "They're following us." The detective crouched beside the vehicle. Shattered glass sparkled on the snow like a constellation. On the dashboard sat a silver bracelet, initials engraved in looping script. E.W. He ran a gloved finger along it, his pulse tightening. "Emma," he murmured. He turned to Max. "Find them, boy." Max sniffed once, twice, then lowered his head and started forward, paws pressing deep into the snow. Ethan followed, boots crunching behind him. They passed under the bridge where icicles hung like daggers, each drop of melting ice catching the light of flashing patrol cars. As they moved, Ethan's thoughts darkened, not toward the victims, but the memory of another case, another night, another woman who'd screamed before the silence came. "Don't let it be the same," he told himself. "Not again." Max stopped suddenly near the guardrail. He pawed at the snow and whined. Ethan knelt beside him, brushing away the frost. Beneath the layer of ice was a footprint, smaller than his hand. Bare, as if someone had been dragged barefoot into the cold. There were 2 sets of prints, uneven, desperate. And then, another pattern, the heavy tread of work boots. Ethan's chest tightened. Abduction confirmed. His radio crackled, but he ignored it. Something else pulled at him. A smell, faint but distinct. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Oil. Thick, industrial, laced with metal. He froze. That scent had haunted him for years. It was the same chemical mixture used at the warehouse where Lena had been killed, where he'd found her wedding ring lying in a pool of blackened grease. His jaw clenched. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. Max let out a low growl, the kind he only used when something wasn't just wrong. It was familiar. The dog's body stiffened, muscles coiling. His brown eyes locked on the darkness beneath the bridge. Ethan followed his gaze and caught movement. A flicker of shadow, too fast to be the wind. "Police!" he shouted, drawing his flashlight. The beam cut through the snow. Nothing. Only the echo of the river, the whisper of wind between metal rails. But when he turned back, Max was staring at him with an almost human intensity, tail rigid, one paw lifted. "You smell it too, don't you?" Ethan muttered. Max barked once, sharp and certain. The detective rose, sweeping the light across the bridge again, heart pounding with that mix of adrenaline and dread only familiarity could bring. "If this is connected to Lena," he said under his breath. The snow along the harbor looked gray now, tainted by ash and salt from the restless Atlantic wind. A line of abandoned warehouses loomed ahead, their roofs sagging under the weight of ice, windows boarded, each one hiding echoes of the city's forgotten trades. Ethan Cole crouched behind a rusted fence, his gloved hand resting lightly on Max's neck. The German shepherd's breath steamed in the cold, eyes sharp, tail still. Every sense in both man and dog was tuned to the same tension, the kind that comes just before something breaks. Ethan's flashlight flickered across the old sign above the largest building, Whitestone Shipping Company. The irony didn't escape him. The name was once tied to Boston's merchant glory, now reduced to a shell for human predators. His jaw tightened. "Red Talon always liked symbolism," he muttered. Behind him, Officer Liam Porter adjusted his rifle strap and stepped forward, boots crunching in the snow. Liam was young, maybe 28, but already had the haunted look of someone who'd seen too many crime scenes too early. He was broad-shouldered, with a close-cropped haircut, and the kind of nervous energy that never settled. Ethan had hand-picked him for this operation, partly because the department's regular backup was spread thin, but mostly because Liam reminded him of who he'd been before cynicism had dulled the edges. "Sir," Liam whispered, his voice steady but low. "Thermal drone picked up faint heat signatures. Could be them, or someone guarding the place." Ethan nodded. "We move quiet. Max leads." They entered through a side door, half-hinged by rust, its creak swallowed by the wind. Inside, the air turned metallic, thick with dust and decay. The faint hum of generators came from somewhere deeper within. Max sniffed the ground, body tense. His fur bristled. He led them through aisles of wooden crates, each stamped with faded shipping codes. The beam from Ethan's flashlight caught the corner of a silver chain on the floor. He knelt, brushing away debris. A small pendant gleamed, the letter G engraved in elegant cursive. Grace Whitmore's. Ethan's pulse quickened, but his voice remained calm. "They're alive." Liam exhaled sharply, relief flickering across his face. "Then let's get them out!" Before Ethan could respond, Max's growl rolled through the silence like thunder muffled by snow. The dog's ears flattened, eyes locked on a stack of crates near the far wall. Ethan raised his weapon, motioning for Liam to circle left. They moved in sync, but as they neared, a faint click sliced through the air. Mechanical, deliberate. "Back!" Ethan shouted. He lunged, grabbing Max's collar, dragging him toward the exit. A flash of light erupted behind them. The explosion bloomed like fire breathing through metal. The shockwave hurled them into the snow outside. For a moment, everything dissolved into heat, noise, and flying splinters. Ethan hit the ground, hard, his head ringing. Snowflakes melted on his burning skin. He coughed, tasting smoke and blood. Max whined beside him, paw twitching, but alive. Liam stumbled out seconds later, one side of his face blackened with soot. "Jesus!" he gasped. "It was rigged!" Ethan pushed himself up, his body screaming in protest. He looked back at the warehouse now burning from within, the flames casting orange light over the snow. On the wall above the entrance, half visible through the smoke, was a painted symbol, a red falcon, its wings outstretched, talons gripping a chain. Red Talon. Ethan stared at it, memories clawing their way to the surface, raids in Mexico, human trafficking tunnels in El Paso, and the man who'd sworn revenge before disappearing into the dark. "Mason Blake," he whispered, the name like poison on his tongue. Liam heard him. "Who's that?" "An old friend," Ethan said, voice rough. "And a ghost I thought was buried." Before Liam could ask more, Max barked sharply and limped toward the back of the lot. He stopped beside fresh tire tracks, large, heavy-duty treads heading toward the industrial pier. The ocean wind whipped across the frozen docks, carrying the smell of brine and diesel. Waves crashed against the old pylons, sending icy spray over Ethan Cole's coat. His shoulder throbbed where a piece of shrapnel had grazed him during the explosion, but pain was the last thing on his mind. Ahead of him, Max moved like a dark blur against the snow, nose low, tail rigid. The German shepherd's breath fogged in rhythmic bursts as he followed the scent trail cutting toward the water's edge. Ethan and Officer Liam Porter trailed close behind, their boots crunching on frost-covered planks. The pier stretched out into the darkness, lit only by a few flickering sodium lamps. At its end stood a small wooden cabin, weathered, isolated, its windows nailed shut from the inside. It looked like something abandoned decades ago, but faint light leaked from the cracks between the boards. "Looks deserted," Liam whispered, though his tone carried doubt. Ethan shook his head. "That's what they want it to look like." He raised a hand for silence. The wind shifted, and faintly, almost lost beneath the sound of the sea, came the muffled sob of a woman. Max's ears twitched. He let out a low growl and began creeping forward, each step deliberate. Ethan drew his sidearm, every nerve tightening with a familiar blend of dread and control. He motioned for Liam to circle to the right flank. When they reached the cabin door, Max lunged without hesitation. His powerful body slammed into the wood, splintering it inward. A shout erupted from inside. A man's voice, startled and angry. Ethan rushed in, gun raised. The room smelled of salt, sweat, and fear. Two young women sat bound to chairs near the corner. Emma and Grace Whitmore, unmistakable even through the bruises and tear-streaked faces. Emma, the elder by minutes, had auburn hair tangled around her shoulders, and though her lips were cracked, her eyes blazed with defiance. Grace, paler, smaller, trembled violently, her blue eyes darting between her sister and the chaos unfolding. Max had already launched himself at a guard near the door, a burly man in a leather jacket with a scar bisecting his eyebrow. The dog's teeth sank into the man's arm, drawing a scream. Ethan moved fast, disarming another who reached for his weapon. A third assailant, thinner, sharper, with tattoos crawling up his neck, fired wildly before Liam tackled him to the ground. The fight ended in seconds. 2 men were down, groaning, one unconscious. But as the smoke cleared, Ethan saw movement through the broken window, a shadow slipping out the back into the storm. He sprinted after it, boots hitting the icy dock. The fleeing man clutched a small metallic object, a USB drive, glinting faintly under the pier lights. Ethan's breath steamed as he shouted, "Stop!" The man turned, and for the first time in 5 years, Ethan froze mid-step. The face under the hood was older, harder, but still unmistakable. Mason Blake, his former partner in the FBI. Mason's dark hair was streaked with gray at the temples, his jaw unshaven, and a deep scar cut down from his left cheekbone to his jawline. His eyes, once warm with loyalty, now burned cold and distant. "Ethan," Mason said, voice low and hoarse, "you shouldn't have come." Ethan's chest tightened. "You're supposed to be dead." Mason smirked faintly. "I was, until I learned what the Bureau was really funding." He held up the USB drive. "This is the truth you were never meant to see." Before Ethan could reply, a gunshot cracked through the wind. Mason stumbled but didn't fall. It was a warning shot from one of his men covering retreat. He backed away toward a waiting boat, idling at the far dock. "You think you're saving those girls," he called out. "But you're only scratching the surface. Red Talon isn't just a gang, Ethan. It's a system." Ethan stepped forward, gun raised, fury boiling through grief. "You worked with them! You helped them!" Mason's eyes flickered. Regret or memory, Ethan couldn't tell. "I tried to stop them. You'll see that one day." Then he leapt onto the boat. The engine roared, spraying salt and snow as it sped into the fog. Liam caught up beside him. The blizzard struck without mercy, swallowing Boston's waterfront in a white veil. Pier 14 was barely visible beyond a blur of snow and fog, its warehouses reduced to ghostly silhouettes against the churning sea. The wind howled through the metal beams like a wounded animal, shaking the frozen chains and scattering shards of ice across the deck. Ethan Cole dragged the twins, Emma and Grace Whitmore, toward a stack of shipping containers, his injured shoulder aching with every movement. Max stayed close, his thick fur crusted with frost, breath clouding the air in bursts. "Inside," Ethan commanded, voice muffled by the wind. He forced open the latch of a refrigerated container, its steel door stiff from cold. The air inside was bitingly frigid, but at least offered shelter from the storm. He spread emergency blankets over the floor and wrapped the girls in thick tarps, their faces ghost pale in the dim light of his flashlight. Grace trembled violently, her lips bluish. "I can't feel my hands," she whispered. Emma held her sister tight, teeth chattering. Ethan crouched beside them, checking Grace's pulse. It was slow, erratic. The early signs of hypothermia. "We need heat," he muttered. "Now." He looked around, frustration rising in his chest. The medkit had burned with their SUV. Max whined beside him, pacing in circles. Ethan met the dog's eyes. "You can't fix this one, buddy," he said bitterly. But Max tilted his head, as if understanding more than words. Then, without warning, the dog turned and bolted into the storm. "Max!" Ethan shouted, scrambling to his feet, but the wind devoured his voice. The dog vanished into the white. Liam Porter, still nursing a bandaged arm from the earlier fight, grabbed Ethan's shoulder. Let him go! He's tracking something! Ethan hesitated, torn between logic and instinct. He stared at the twins, Emma clutching Grace, rocking her gently like a mother might a child. Grace's eyelids fluttered weakly. "Don't you dare fall asleep," Emma whispered. "Don't you dare." An hour crawled by. The storm thickened, the cold chewing through every layer of clothing. Ethan rubbed his hands together and pressed them against Grace's cheeks, desperate to share warmth. Her breathing shallowed. "Stay with me," he murmured, feeling the old helplessness clawing up his spine, the same that had consumed him the night Lena died. The same storm, the same cold, the same failure, waiting to repeat itself. He pressed his forehead against the container wall and breathed, each exhale a prayer he no longer believed in. Then, faintly through the roar of the wind came a sound, a bark. Ethan's head snapped up. "Max?" A dark shape emerged through the snow, dragging something bulky between his jaws. The dog stumbled into the container, shaking off the frost. A military-style medical backpack, torn but intact, dropped at Ethan's feet. The man fell to his knees, unzipping it in disbelief. Inside, trauma dressings, heat packs, and vials of anti-shock medication. Liam stared, astonished. Where the hell did he find that? Ethan scanned the tag on the torn strap. Pier security, staff cabin. Max had raided the security post. "Good boy," Ethan whispered, his voice cracking. "You just saved her." He tore open a heat pack, shaking it until warmth bloomed beneath his palms, then slid it under Grace's armpits and wrapped her tighter. He prepared a small syringe of epinephrine and injected it carefully into her thigh. Within minutes, color began creeping back into her face. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, then focused on him. "It's okay," Ethan said softly. "You're safe now." Emma exhaled in relief, tears freezing on her cheeks. She reached out to Max, who was panting heavily, his paw bleeding from a fresh cut. "You're a hero," she whispered. Max wagged his tail weakly, then slumped to the floor beside her, exhausted but content. As Ethan reached to seal the pack, something at the bottom caught his eye. A laminated ID card. He frowned, pulling it free. The storm had broken overnight, leaving the world reborn under a pale blue dawn. The snow along the Boston River glowed like crushed glass beneath the rising sun. Helicopter rotors thundered above, slicing through the mist, their shadows skimming across the icy water. On the riverbank, Ethan Cole stood beside Max, the German shepherd's right paw still bandaged from the night before. The dog's breath fogged the air, but his eyes burned bright and alert. Ethan placed a gloved hand on his partner's back and whispered, "One last run, buddy." Across the river, the cargo ship Valkyrie loomed like a floating fortress. Red Talon's insignia, a falcon clutching a chain, had been hastily painted over, but the smell of oil and gunpowder clung to the deck. SWAT teams took position along the docks, led by Captain Sarah Lorne, a tall woman in her early 40s with a commanding posture. Her dark hair was tied in a no-nonsense bun, her angular face marked by the faint scar of an old burn along her jawline. Years of field command had sharpened her into something carved from both discipline and loss. "Cole," she called, voice slicing through the wind. "You lead from the west stairwell. We have confirmation Mason's still on board." Ethan met her gaze. "Then we finish this." Sarah nodded once, the kind of acknowledgement exchanged between soldiers who've already accepted the cost. Behind them, Officer Liam Porter, arm wrapped in a rough sling, readied his sidearm with his good hand. His young face carried new lines since the night at the pier. Fear and resolve fused into something like quiet defiance. At 0600 hours, the order came through. Move. Ethan and Max led the advance. Their boots clanged against the steel ramp as they boarded the Valkyrie. Gunfire cracked almost immediately, echoing off the hull. Max barked once and lunged forward, knocking one of the gunmen off balance while Ethan fired a controlled burst. The air reeked of cordite and salt. SWAT units breached the upper decks, flashbangs lighting the fog like bursts of lightning. Mason Blake's voice carried from the bridge, calm, commanding, laced with venom. "Hold them back. We sail now." Ethan pushed forward through the chaos, his pulse syncing with Max's movements. Every corner they cleared brought them closer to the heart of Red Talon. When they reached the bridge, Mason stood waiting. He looked older under daylight, his once black hair now streaked fully gray, his suit soaked and torn. But his eyes, sharp and tired, still held the same brilliance Ethan remembered from their FBI days. He held a pistol in one hand and the USB drive in the other. "You can't win this," Mason said. "You think killing me ends it? The city feeds on rot. It's in the police, the courts, the boardrooms. Everyone's already sold their soul to survive." Ethan raised his weapon, voice steady. "Maybe, but not me." Mason's expression softened for a moment, something like pity flickering there. "That's what I used to believe, too." He lifted his pistol. Time slowed. Max moved before thought could form. The German Shepherd lunged, colliding with Mason just as the gun fired. The bullet tore through Ethan's sleeve, grazing skin, but missed the mark. Mason stumbled, Max's jaws locking onto his arm. He cried out, struggling, but the dog held firm. The weapon clattered to the floor, sliding toward Ethan's boot. Ethan kicked it away and stepped forward, pressing Mason against the wall. "It's over," he said quietly. Mason's breathing was ragged, his defiance fading. "You still don't get it," he rasped. "Cut off one head, 2 more grow back. Red Talon was never one man." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Then I'll keep cutting." SWAT agents swarmed in, cuffing Mason as medics rushed to tend to the wounded. Sarah approached, her voice crisp. "Primary target secured. Red Talon network collapsed." Her eyes lingered on Max, who was limping, blood dark against his fur. "Get that dog to a medic. He's earned it." Hours later, silence returned to the docks. The Valkyrie was impounded, its engines dead. Snow began falling again, gentle this time, as if the sky itself sought to cleanse what had happened. Ethan sat beside Max in the back of the rescue van, stroking the dog's head. "You did good, partner. You're not allowed to die on me now." Max responded with a soft grunt, resting his muzzle on Ethan's leg. Sometimes miracles don't descend from the heavens wrapped in light. They arrive quietly, on 4 tired paws, through the smoke and snow, reminding us that faith never truly leaves. Ethan once believed he had lost everything: his wife, his purpose, his reason to hope. Yet through Max, through 2 frightened sisters who survived the storm, and through a single act of courage born from loyalty, he rediscovered something greater than justice: grace. Because miracles are not always thunder in the sky. Sometimes they are the heartbeat beside us when the world falls silent. They are the friend who stays when everyone else walks away. They are the moment you kneel in the cold, whispering a prayer you weren't sure you still believed in, and something answers, quietly, faithfully. In our lives, storms will come: betrayal, loss, despair. But no matter how cold the night, God always sends a light, sometimes through people, sometimes through courage, and sometimes through a loyal dog who refuses to give up. So tonight, if this story touched your heart, share it. Let someone else know that hope still breathes, that faith still walks among us, that God is never late. Leave a comment below. Tell us what part moved you most, and if you believe that no soul